Hey guys, I have been homeschooling for something like 8 years. I need to actually sit down and do the math. It's been a long time. It's been so long that I can't actually remember how long I've been homeschooling. But I kind of lean toward the leadership education model for, not kind of, I absolutely use the leadership education. And if you want to know what that is, check out this video on it. But I also kind of lean toward unschooling in some ways, that I'm a little bit more laid back. You know, the afternoons are free form when we do our learning. We can pursue our own interests, and we have a lot of different things that aren't necessarily structured. But I have a major problem with unschooling, and I wanted to cover that today. I hope that it's not offensive to people, because obviously unschooling can be a really wonderful thing. But this is the problem that I have run into in my unschooling methods. So I was reading this book called The Paideia Proposal, and it's by Mortimer Adler, and oh my goodness, it's hard to read. But it was a really great book. I was looking for educational principles in this book, and I found a bunch, and it was really wonderful in a lot of ways. However, he said something in there that just really hit me, and I thought, that is why I struggle with unschooling as a philosophy, that everything's going to be fine. So let me just read you what he says in there. He says, learning by discovery can occur without help. That's unschooling, right? Learning by discovery, allowing them to just discover the world. It can occur without help, but only geniuses can gain an education without a teacher. This is the problem with an entirely student-led learning. That is the problem with unschooling. It is not that kids don't learn by discovery, it's that there is a limit, that they get to the point where there's just not enough there. And let me just say, for those of you who are unschooling and you're like, hang on a second, I provide all sorts of opportunities for my kids to learn, and okay, I get that. I'm just saying, if you leave your kids alone and just hope that they will discover the world around them and find out the things that interest them on their own, there's going to be a ceiling. And they won't be able to push past that, because they just don't know what they don't know. They need somebody, a mentor, somebody who can inspire them, somebody who's really excited about whatever that topic is, who will take them from where they are and break them out into something else, something higher and something better than they've even imagined. And they need people who are going to introduce them to subjects and ideas that they have never before considered. Because on their own, discovering things is limited to what they're exposed to. And so if they're not being exposed to things that might be like their passion, their drive, their mission in life, they're going to miss out on it because they just didn't even know it was there. So I love the unschooling methods that we use. And I know some people who unschool highly successfully, but I also see that there is this cap to it, that there gets to be a point where they become teenagers, they get older, and that method of learning on your own is limited by what they are able to be exposed to. So bringing in ideas and helping them come across new people and new ideas is really, really important. Taking a more hands-on approach as they get older is vitally important to them being able to really develop their own genius. So Mortimer Adler talks about 5 different characteristics of a really great teacher when you get to this point and you need to have somebody who's going to take it to the whole next level. And he says, this is what you really need to be and bring if you are that teacher. First, you have to ask inviting and entertaining questions. That really floored me. I thought, entertaining? I am not here to entertain you. And yet, some of the best teachers that I have had, whether they are trying to tell me, sit down, learn this concept, or they're doing more of a, I'm just giving a presentation and this is sort of entertaining, they ask questions that make me laugh, that make me think, that make me introspect. That's really powerful because they're able to present things in a way that is entertaining. It's not just, okay, I need to take notes, it's this idea, and then this idea, and then this idea, but they're actually presenting things in a way that makes me enjoy the experience. That is a sign of a really great teacher. So don't be afraid to ask entertaining questions. This is something that I am afraid to ask. I ask very serious questions. I'm leading toward a conclusion. I'm very Socratic in the way I approach it, whatever. But the fact is, if you're asking entertaining questions, you're going to get more of a response. You're going to affect them on an emotional level, and then they're going to be more willing to engage on a mental level. So ask entertaining and insightful questions, right? So it's really good to ask insightful questions too, but don't be afraid of being entertaining once in a while. The next thing that these really great, amazing teachers do is that they encourage sustained inquiry. So So everybody's going to have like that initial, wait, what? You know, that question of what does that mean? And can you tell me a little bit more? And what's the punchline kind of idea? But really great teachers take it to that next level and sort of feed you along these so that you're continually interested in it and you want to figure out, okay, so that's how a cell works. How do molecules inside the cell work? How do atoms work? How do quarks work? You know, taking it on and on and on and on until you're to the point where you're like, wow, I know a lot of stuff because I was able to sustain my inquiry. I was able to maintain that level of curiosity, and teachers play such a big role in that. There are some kids who are really good at this, right? And I think that having unschooling helps a lot, that you're like, just go for it. Let's find that curiosity inside of you and feed that and encourage that, and that's great. But when it gets to be really hard subjects, like maybe you're studying different wars or different psychology, or I don't know, some subject that's not particularly interesting to a child, a great quality of the teacher is to be able to ignite that curiosity and bring it along, you know, giving just enough information so that they still want to learn more and more and more. That's such a great quality of an excellent teacher. And I just have to say, caveat here, I don't know that I am this kind of a teacher, at least not all of the time. I'm quite often not this kind of a teacher. But when I read this, I think, yes, I've had teachers that have been so good at that they have given me just enough information that it kind of whets my appetite. That I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? What kind of application does that have for me personally? And when I walk away from their presentation or from their class or whatever, I'm not closing the book and saying, well, that's over. They left enough on the table that I want to pursue it. I want to figure out more about that. I wanted to really understand what's going on here. You left as many questions in my mind as you answered. And that's a really important part of having that sustained inquiry. The third thing that they do is they supervise helpfully a wide variety of exercises and drills. Oh my goodness, I had such a visceral response to this. Let me say those words that really made me not love it. Exercises and drills. Oh my goodness. I hate it. I don't want to do this. I have all these pictures of worksheets and misery and tears, and it's just awful. And so I immediately, when I read that, I was like, wrong, Mortimer. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And then I thought, okay, take a chill pill. What else could be an exercise or a drill? Like, how often do I do things in my home that are drills? You know, we're learning about multiplication problems, but they're kind of like a physical drill. I want you to answer what's this math problem? I'm going to give you the multiplication problem, and you got to run to that side of the room and back here again before you answer it. And so I turned it into like a physical drill at the same time that we're doing this mental drill, because the mental drill is not fun. They don't like it. And so I'm trying to make it more exciting and more engaging for them. But the point is, it's still a drill. It's still an exercise. And you still have to do things that get those skills in their head. You have to know your multiplication facts before you can really move on to the other things. And the best way to do that is to cover them over and over and over again. Now, maybe you use music and that works out really well for you. Maybe writing the numbers works really well for your kid. Maybe just seeing the numbers over and over works well for your kid. But what doesn't work is exposing it to them one time and then walking away from it. That doesn't work. They're not going to know their multiplication tables. They have to keep coming at it and being exposed to it over and over again. And so you have to have some sort of process that you're using to make this possible to keep coming at it. And I revolt against the idea of exercises and drills, but I recognize that you do have to do things over and over again. So if you can find a way to make those exercises or those drills kind of fun, instead of miserable, it is an important part of being a good teacher, is getting those skills and those facts in your head so that you can then launch off from there. The fourth quality of a really great teacher is that they lead discussions. Now, this is something that actually I'm really good at. And as a result, you can see I'm really bad at a lot of the things that came before. But leading discussions is something that not very many people do. It's not a common part of the education. It's not a common part of the public school education, but it is a very important part of education, especially when you think about the Hebrew way of learning, that they all just sort of sat around a table and tossed out an idea and started talking about, well, what do you think about this? And what did this person a long time ago think about that? And where have we found truth throughout all time? And how can we see it being applied in today's world? And how have you personally experienced this? And you start bringing in ideas and thinking about it and discussing it. Even if the child never says a word, but they just listen to the discussion around them, this is a really, really powerful venue for learning. And it's something that's really you should be doing as a teacher. You cannot really have a discussion about math facts, right? So that's why you do some drilling and some exercising on those kind of things like math facts, but you can have lots of discussions when it comes to history, philosophy, biology. There are a lot of things that you can discuss when it goes outside of the drill and kill method. And I don't like drilling and killing, but when you get outside of those things that are just fact retention and you get into the meaning of life and how it impacts these kids, why is it important? I can't remember the name of this book, something about light, and it's the story of this guy who was a teenager in France during World War II, and he's watching his whole country be taken over by Germany, and he's so upset about it. And he says, we went to school and we rushed through our education so that we could get home and do the real work of learning how to live. And I thought, oh my goodness, when we have to separate education from learning how to live, we're really messed up. This is an important part of education, is learning how to live, learning what is truly important. And so he kind of had to have those separated. That was just his experience, and a lot of people that is, but a really excellent teacher does not separate those. That discussion is a part of how to live, and that's what you talk about when it comes to history and all the different ologies. Basically, you're going to be able to have discussions all in those areas, and it talks about how we should be living, who we should be, what the point of this life is, what the point of being with other people is, how to be in a society. All of those things are really, really important, and we need to be able to have discussions so that we can bring those into education and not have them something that education's over here and then learning how to live is over here. And really, discussion is what brings those two things together. And the last thing that Mortimer Adler says is that we should, really great teachers, give examinations that arouse constructive responses. And again, my initial visceral response was just, no, I'm not going to sit my kids down and give them a multiple choice test because that doesn't prove anything. And I had to breathe, let's think this through. An examination just means let's figure out if you've actually learned this. An examination often in our house is a conversation where I do most of the listening. I will ask a question and just let them tell me what they've learned, let them tell me what they understand. I'm examining their level of comprehension. This is a much better way to determine if a child has learned. It's a much better testing method. And what he's saying is that when you're asking those questions, they should be able to have constructive responses. They should be able to construct their ideas. They should be able to put together all of the different thoughts that they have and build this idea that explains what they've learned and how they're feeling and the things that are important. Even if what you are examining, what you're testing, is their understanding of math facts, they should still be able to construct the ideas that they have gathered and be able to say, here are my math facts, I can construct them, I can put them together and deliver them to you. So this is a really important aspect of testing, is understanding that they need to be able to deliver the information to you and not necessarily just put it on a paper. But they do have to be able to show you in some way that they're learning. And this is another problem with unschooling a lot of times, that they are not able to verbalize what they're learning. And so they lose it, because that's an important part of being able to lock it into our minds, is to be able to narrate what we have thought, to be able to put it into words and say, this is what I saw, this is what I thought, this is what was important to me, this is what stood out to me, and that locks it into their heads and helps them to really be able to retain this and construct their learning for themselves. So even though I really love a lot of unschooling principles, this to me was a very important concept that as a teacher, we need to do more than just allow them to wander around and run into life and figure out things because they're curious about it, but present things in a way that's really motivating and enabling for our kids to become really great learners. No matter how you choose to educate your kids, maybe you are full-blown unschooling, or maybe you want to get as far from unschooling as possible. I hope you understand that your role as a parent is really, really important in this whole process, and that they are going to get a better education because you are engaged in it with them. You are doing something that is really, really important, and you're doing a much better job at it than you think you are. It's just vital to society, and it's vital to your family that you keep doing what you're doing because it's so, so valuable. I hope this helps you. I hope if you have any questions, will you just put them in the comments, because I feel like I want to be able to talk to you about what is important to you, and I don't always know what that is. So let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you on the next one.